welcome into the first edition of This Week in ARCA right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me tonight. As, like I said, we have the first episode of This Week in ARCA, and this show will be anything and everything about the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards. Race recaps, news, points, driver interviews, hopefully winner interviews every time. Anything and everything you might want to see about the ARCA Racing Series, we will have it right here on this show for you. Tonight we are recapping the General Tire 200 from this past weekend at the Talladega Superspeedway, taking a more in-depth look at it than what we would usually do on pole position, breaking down races for everyone. We have extended highlights from the race, so you get to see if you missed the race. We've got highlights for you, and we'll get you talked through it, as well as looking at the points after the race, how they might be shaken up. Unfortunately, this time around, we do not have a winner interview. We weren't able to work out anything with Zane Smith to get him on this week, so hopefully next time around for Toledo, we'll have a winner interview for you here on This Week in ARCA. But otherwise, everything about normal tonight. So we'll just go ahead and get started with some highlights from Talladega. So we'll go ahead and flash those on the screen right now. And we will start right here with the green flag for the evening. Michael Self and Chase Purdy on the front row. If you remember, Michael Self was your Daytona winner for the ARCA Racing Series. So picking up right where he left off on the last plate track here up front as they dive it down into turn one here. And we jump a few more laps into the race. Michael Self getting shuffled back here a little bit. Close quarters between himself, Bo LeMastus, and Sheldon Creed. Everybody keeping it straight, though, which is amazing for how close that got. Jump a few more laps here. Zane Smith to the lead around his teammate Chase Purdy. Zane Smith, no stranger to the lead as he won a couple weeks ago in Nashville. A few more laps ahead, and Bo LeMastus, Michael Self getting into it once again. LeMastus slides up the track almost into Joe Graff Jr. There he actually got into him. And as we take a look at this again, it is amazing that Michael Self is able to keep that car straight. Bo LeMastus, the same thing. It's amazing he was able to keep it straight, just all the way sideways through there. Now, first wreck of the day, Thomas Prater, Brandon Grosso, Bobby Gerhart all spinning in turns 1 and 2. Bobby Gerhart, though, would rebound from this for a pretty decent day. This effectively would be the end of the days for Prater and Grosso, though. This right here, the end of the day for Natalie Decker. She gets punted from behind going down the backstretch. She had a lot of speed in that car. It's unfortunate she got taken out so early. All the Venturini Motorsports with cars with speed this weekend. Unfortunately, that would be the end of the day for her. That's the same car she had in Daytona. If you remember, she finished 5th in that race, so high hopes for her. Unfortunately, not able to finish them off. A few more laps into the race. Michael Self with the lead right now. He really had control there for a while in the middle portions of the race, as we see Brett Holmes dropping like a rock through the middle of the pack. Lap 44, Michael Self, Sheldon Creed side by side for the lead. These two really were the two of the classes of the field. They were really up front all day long. As we see them side by side leading both trains here on the front stretch. Brett Holmes trying to get to the inside here, as you see, he kind of gets stuck in the middle. He was needing to pit in a couple of laps and trying to get down to the bottom to make it a little easier to pit. Unfortunately, that dropped him a few positions as he did that. There's a few guys needing to pit within a couple laps. Michael Self, the leader, being one of those. As we see here, they come off of turn 4. This is those pit stops. Self a little sideways. If you look back there, Brett Holmes ends up getting himself spinned off the right rear corner of Andy Seiss. And that would be the end of the day for Brett Holmes. Just really aggressive getting onto pit road. I'm not sure I completely understand the need for that aggression. I guess Andy Seiss getting woed up a little sooner than Brett Holmes was expecting, but there's a lot of room to use there to get onto pit road, and everybody's just trying to stay right there on the yellow line. You've got all this room to use. I don't understand the need for everybody to be bunched up the way they were, because things like that happen when you're bunched up like that. Right here, this would be the end of the day for Leilani Munter as she ends up getting spun through the tri-oval into the grass and slides back into the wall. That would be the end of the day for that veganstrong.com Toyota for Leilani as we ride in car with her down through the tri-oval. You just see right here she gets turned, and at this point you're just along for the ride. You can't really do anything at this point. Final lap of regulation, and we have a big one in 3 and 4. Bo LeMastus and Chase Purdy really getting caught up in this one. This would set up ARCA overtime, a one-lap shootout. You got to throw the caution there just to make sure everybody is safe. There was really 2 wrecks on that final lap. This was the first one as Brian Dowza gets spun in 1 and 2 up into the wall. You see he spins down out of the racing line, way down into the grass, not really in harm's way, so that really didn't warrant a caution. This right here, though, as Bo LeMastus and Chase Purdy end up coming together across the nose of Gustine, you look how much these cars are torn up. You look at the big hits they take. You have to throw a caution for this just to make sure everybody is safe. You can't wait until the checkered flag to get everybody out there. You've got to make sure. I mean, this is a hard hit, especially for Chase Purdy. You got to get out there and make sure he is okay, as well as Bo LeMastus and anybody else. I mean, look at this. Look at Cody Robaugh right here. He was involved in that as well. He doesn't have a windshield at this point. That car is destroyed. Just another reason why there needed to be a caution there. First attempt at ARCA overtime right here. Zane Smith with a huge run on his teammate Sheldon Creed. Throws it to the outside coming off of turn 2. Zane Smith to the lead with a push from Sean Core. Riley Herbst down to the inside now. Sheldon Creed as he is stuck in the middle. Herbst now turns himself across the nose of Creed into Sean Core. And this would set up the second attempt at ARCA overtime. Zane Smith, Joe Graff on the front row for this one. Sheldon Creed, Michael Self right behind them as we have another one-lap shootout here. As we head it down into turn 1, we'll show you the whole final lap here as these cars, the top 4 really get hooked together right here through 1 and 2. This is the race for the win. Smith and Graff side by side off of 2. Can Self and Creed make a move here, or do they push Smith and Graff to the win? What is the best play here for them? As we see, they're backing off now off of Smith and Graff. Going to see if they can make a run here down the front stretch as the start-finish line not in the middle of the tri-oval, just a little bit past it toward turn 1. Beating and banging Zane Smith and Joe Graff. Here comes Sheldon Creed and Michael Self. Creed going to look to the inside here, but he can't go below that double yellow line. Just has nowhere to go. Smith and Graff still beating and banging through the tri-oval as they come across the line. Such a close finish. Zane Smith picks it up by just a couple of inches. The closest finish in the history of the ARCA Racing Series. .029, the official margin of victory, less than 0.03 of a second. Let's see what Zane Smith had to say after this win.
Zane, on the wind-down lap, you happen to admit you almost soiled yourself like 4 times. Where and when and why?
Dude, if you asked me if I was going to get this one halfway through this race, I would say, eh. But man, who won this thing is all these guys, and Derek kneeling up on that spotter stand, man, that dude is unreal. That, I don't care what anyone says, that is the best spotter in the world. And I have the best people behind me in the world. La Paz, Margarita Mix, Icon Vehicle Dynamics, Speed Vegas, Ultra Wheel.
So that was your winner, Zane Smith. His post-race interview from Victory Lane. In this one, a wild General Tire 200 from the Talladega Superspeedway. A very exciting race for the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards. Now, we will go ahead and take a look at the results from this one, and we'll go ahead and break down everyone's days as well. Zane Smith, obviously, as we saw there, your winner, had a very outstanding day. Speed in the car all day, running right up front. His second win of the season. He is really on a tear right now and setting himself up really as the championship favorite this season. I think there's a couple other guys and a girl that might have something to say about that, but right now he is putting it to him here in the ARCA Racing Series. The only guy running a full season thus far to have won a race, because Michael Self won in Daytona, Michael Self not running a full season, and Christian Eckes winning in Salem. Eckes also not running a full season. So right now, Zane Smith, the only guy running a full season with race wins in ARCA. Joe Graff Jr. in second, so close to his first career win in ARCA. And the funny thing was, this wasn't even on Joe Graff's schedule for this season. He wasn't supposed to race in Talladega. Chad Brandt Racing, down to the last minute, couldn't find anybody to drive the 77 or the 22 for this weekend that they could get approved in time. So they called up Joe Graff Jr., that added this race to his schedule last minute. He shows up in Talladega and comes about maybe 2 inches from winning the thing. Just incredible. Michael Self comes home in the 3rd position. A fantastic run for him as well. We talked to him a few weeks ago after Nashville, and if you remember, he mentioned from all the races that he has finished in ARCA, he's had a couple of DNFs for mechanical failures, getting caught up in wrecks, those kind of things. But from the races that he has finished, he has never finished below 4th. So this just continues that streak for him. He had speed in that car all day. I would not have been surprised to see him win that race. He just, with the position he was in on the outside lane, he really couldn't do anything there at the end. He might have been able to jump to the outside if he had a little bit of a run, but I don't think it would have been enough. I think all that would have done was stalled out Zane Smith and ended up it would have, Joe Graff Jr. was on the outside, so it would have stalled out Joe Graff and just made the win a little bit easier for Zane Smith. I think that's all that really would have done had Michael Self jumped to the outside. I don't think there was really any way for him to get enough of a run to actually win that race. 4th place was Sheldon Creed. Fantastic run for him, just adding to that number of top 5s on the season for him. I believe, let me look at this here. Yes, that is the 4th top 5 for him in 4 races this season. So, incredible start to the season for Sheldon Creed. Doesn't have a win yet, but has finished top 5 in every race this season. He's knocking on the door. He's going to get that first ARCA Racing Series victory here very soon. It may even come in the next race at Toledo. We'll have to see, but I know it's got to be coming soon because he's been so close every single race this season. I would think it's got to happen here eventually. Rounding out the top 5, we have Josh Williams in his first start in the ARCA Racing Series in a long time. I don't know the exact number, but I believe it has been a couple of years since Josh Williams has competed in an ARCA race. Comes back out and finishes 5th. So a great run there for Port Charlotte, Florida's Josh Williams in that Starbright Startron Chevy. Max Tullman in that 78 car for Mason Mitchell Motorsports. His first race since Daytona. Puts up a strong showing in the 6th position. So great job there for Max Tullman. Brandon Lynn in his first race of the season in that 55 car for Venturini Motorsports. He has a 2-race schedule this season. This race and Charlotte in about a month. They're at the end of the month in May. The same weekend, NASCAR's in Charlotte for the Coke 600. That will be the ARCA race weekend. That is his 2nd race of the season. So great start to a 2-race schedule for him, finishing in 7th. This is a race, though, that I think I expected a little bit more out of him, given the fact that he ran so well last season in this race. Almost won it. Led, I believe it was the final 20 laps of the 2017 edition of this race. And ended up on the wrong fuel strategy, basically, at the end for overtime. And did not come away with the victory, but had a very strong run last season. So I think I expected a little bit more out of him this season. 7th, I feel like, is a little bit of a disappointment for Brandon Lynn. Bobby Gerhardt, if you remember, he was involved in that first wreck of the day. with Brandon Grosso and Thomas Prater. Still comes back for a pretty respectable finish, though, in 8th. Bobby Gerhard, really one of those guys, 12 plate wins in the ARCA Racing Series from Daytona and Talladega. He knows his way around Talladega. I would have liked to have been able to see what he could have done had he not gotten caught up in that wreck at the beginning, and it just kind of stuck him back in the pack, and he had a little bit of damage. Just he couldn't do a lot with his race after that. Travis Braden with a very respectable finish in 9th. I believe that might be his best finish of the season. Yes, it is. First top 10 of the season for Travis Braden. So kudos to Travis Braden there for bringing home first top 10 of the season. And being Wheeling, West Virginia's Travis Braden. In the Matrix Care, Consonas Healthcare, Liberty Village Ford. And rounding out the top 10 was Andy Seiss in his second race of the season. He was in Daytona as well. And if you remember, he got caught up in that incident with Brett Holmes coming onto pit road there early in the race. So for him to be able to rebound and still get a top 10, pretty good for Andy Seiss. Brian Dowza able to continue after that wreck, the first wreck of the 2 in that lap, that coming to what was initially supposed to be the scheduled checkered flag before we had the 2 overtimes. Still able to keep it going and finish in the 11th position for Brian Dowza from Alexandria, Louisiana in the OB Builders Chevy. Bluffton, South Carolina's Gus Dean came home in the 12th position in that Gree Cooling Products Chevy. I'm sure not the day Gus Dean was looking for. He's had some good runs to start the season. 12th, I don't think quite the day that he was looking for. Blaine Perkins getting caught up in one of those wrecks to cause one of the overtimes there at the end. Had a strong car. He was running up there near the front at the end of the race. Just ends up getting caught up in that wreck. I believe it was the first one that caused the first overtime that he was caught up in. Ends up in the 13th position. Con Nicolopoulos with his best finish of the season in 14th in that GreatRailing.com Chevy. Jesse Iwuji in his first race of the season comes home in the 15th position. Very respectable run for Iwuji in that Basham Racing Chevy for BBMC Mortgage. Dave Mater III comes home in the 16th position. He had a very up and down day. I think he had some speed in the car, just kind of getting caught up in some madness during different parts of the day. Riley Herbst, as we saw, caused the I don't want to necessarily say he caused the second overtime, but he was involved in the wreck and was part of the initial incident that triggered the wreck that caused the second overtime. He ends up in the 17th position. Robert Powers comes home in 18th in that number 38 OF Racing Chevrolet. D.L. Wilson in the 10 car, the Syntex Roof Systems Chevy, comes home in the 19th position. Brandon Grosso, 3 laps off the pace after that initial wreck. Never really could rebound from that. He comes home in the 20th position in that 52 car for Ken Schrader Racing. Thomas Prater also involved in that first wreck. He ends up 5 laps off the pace in the 21st position in that number 9 car Chevrolet. Leilani Munter, we saw her problems there late in the race. She ends up 6 laps off the pace in 21st in her number 20 Vegan Strong Toyota for Venturini Motorsports. Sean Corr, we also saw his problems there on the final in that final wreck that caused the final overtime. 23rd on the day for Sean Corr. Cody Robaugh also getting caught up in a late wreck. 24th for him. 11 laps off the pace. Chase Purdy also getting involved in that first wreck that would cause the first overtime. 25th on the day for him. He'll take a hit in the points from that one. Bo Lamastus also in that same wreck, 26th for him. These guys all ending up 12 laps off the pace. Brett Holmes with his problem coming onto pit road, 27th on the day for him. He will, I'm sure, also take a hit in the points for that one. Natalie Decker had some speed in the car. We saw what happened to her. Ends up getting run into from behind mid portions of the race on the backstretch. And this was a day I think could have done a lot of good for her in the points. Maybe not necessarily win the race, but I think she could have had a very strong finish and put herself in better contention in the points. But instead, just drop kicks her a little bit lower in the points and just ends up hurting her in the points. 29th, Ed Pompa in the 11 car, the Double H Ranch Clifton Trucking Toyota. Only made 14 laps in this one. Kevin Hinkle in that Kimmel Racing number 69, sponsored by Fast Diesel Fuel Systems. He only completed 2 laps in this one, came home in the 30th position. And Brad Smith in the 48 car comes home in the 31st position, the 48 car for Hilton Motorsports. Shotgun on the field in 31st. Now, speaking of Hilton Motorsports, I want to mention, if you haven't heard it already, unfortunately, we did lose James Hilton and his son James Jr., also known as Tweet, following this race on their drive home from the track, getting caught up in a car accident, and we did lose both James Hilton and James Hilton Jr. So our thoughts and prayers go out to the Hilton family for their loss there, and the whole racing community has lost an icon in James Hilton. He's been in the garage both in NASCAR and in ARCA for a very long time. It's just been a staple in the garage. Like, there weren't many races you could go to and you didn't see James Harvey Hilton. So his loss will definitely be felt in and around the garage for a long time. Looking at the stats of this race, 7 cautions in this one, 38 laps. We did have 1 red flag for that Chase Purdy Bo Lamastus wreck that caused the first overtime for just over 7 minutes. Lap leaders in this race, led the most laps in this one. That would be Sheldon Creed. He led 23 laps. Michael Self very close behind, though, with 21 laps. Zane Smith led 16 laps. Blaine Perkins led 12. Brett Holmes led 6. Max Tolman 5. And Chase Purdy led 4 laps very early in the race. Fastest lap of the race set by Bobby Gerhart, 52.052 seconds. 183.970 miles per hour. Now, that will take us into the points following this race, and we do have a little bit of shuffling in the points as we go forward here. Sheldon Creed still at the top of the point standings right now. Zane Smith closed that gap just a little bit, 20 points. He closed it in, still 70 points off of his teammate here. Is, like we said, Sheldon Creed has had a great start to the season. Zane Smith may have 2 wins. Sheldon Creed has 4 top 10s. Can't have 5 top 5s in 4 races. I don't know how that math would work out, but apparently it sounded good in my head in the moment. So, no, Sheldon Creed has 4 top 5s in 4 races. And that allows him to hold the points lead right now. Those two are really right now solidifying themselves as the championship favorites here 4 races into the season. Riley Herbst stays status quo at 3rd. Michael Self, who was not in Salem, held the points lead into Salem and then dropped to 7th after Salem. Rebounds now up to the 4th position in points. Again, though, Michael Self not running the full season, so while it may look like he is there in championship contention, unfortunately, really, he's not. Chase Purdy holding steady in the 5th position even after his late race accident. Travis Braden, though, jumps it up 3 spots into the 6th position. Great jump for Travis Braden there. Natalie Decker, though, on the other end of the spectrum, dropping 3 positions down to 7th, actually tied with Travis Braden for 6th. Gus Dean holding steady in the 8th position. Thomas Prater up 1 spot to 9th, and Brett Holmes drops 4 spots down to the 10th position. So Brett Holmes taking the biggest slide of the week, while Michael Self takes the biggest jump of the week. Again, though, can you really count Michael Self as the biggest jump of the week when he's not running the full schedule? And while he's there in 4th, and it's great that he's in 4th, he's not running for the championship. Which actually, to me, I think is fantastic. Because if you look at a guy that's not even running the full schedule, skipped a whole race in Salem, and he is still 4th in points. That's just amazing to me. The finishes he can put together to be able to do that. You got a first in Daytona, 4th in Nashville, and now 3rd at Talladega, even with not competing in Salem. He's put together a lot of points and is holding his own there in 4th. It really makes me wish that he was running the full schedule, because I really think Michael Self would be a serious championship contender if he were running the full schedule this year. So that's your point standings following Talladega this week, and that will do it for This Week in ARCA. So, thank you for joining me tonight as we break down the General Tire 200 this week from the Talladega Superspeedway. If you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss a thing here from Racing News Now. As you can see, we are premiering new shows. We're doing a lot here with RNN. Got a lot planned going forward. This isn't the top. We're continuing to move forward and to do bigger and better things here at RNN. So you wanna hang out and be sure to catch all of that, because it's going to be exciting here going forward. Hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It's much appreciated when you do. And don't forget to support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/racingnewsnow. It is by no means required. You can definitely enjoy these videos for free, and I don't mind that you do. But it is definitely appreciated when you do help us out on Patreon, because that just allows us to get bigger and better and give you better quality content going into the future. So with that, this has been This Week in ARCA, taking you inside the ARCA garage each and every week. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.